Sometimes when misfortunes occur in a person's life, it can be hard for that person to find the strength to move on. Everyone handles problems differently, and each person struggles in their own way. The person in our story today went through more than the average person could handle. He suddenly lost his parents, as well as his own health, but we will tell you whether he managed to overcome his struggle. Arthur was 16 years old and still had a lot of life to live. Like many teenagers, he had plans for his future. He loved spending time with his friends, led an active lifestyle, and was a good student. His parents were proud. Often, his family would go out of town for the weekend to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. This weekend was no exception. The weather was excellent, and the family looked forward to their trip. They left early in the morning so as to beat the traffic. The sun had just begun to rise, and they were on their way. Everyone was cheerful and happy, telling stories and laughing, when suddenly the car hit a large stone. The father couldn't keep hold of the steering wheel, and the car ended up in a ditch. Everything happened so quickly that Arthur didn't have time to respond, nor could he remember what happened. He woke up in the hospital with his tear-stained grandmother Lillian next to his bed. The first thing he asked was how his parents were, but at those words, his grandmother burst into more tears. Lillian did not know how to tell her grandson that his parents didn't make it. She also was at a loss as to how to tell him that he received a spinal injury and he would never walk again. Nevertheless, she broke the news to him and attempted to reassure her grandson. It's hard to imagine what went through Arthur's head at the time. Not everyone can bear becoming bedridden at such a young age, let alone an orphan. At first, he tried to maintain a fighting spirit for the sake of his grandmother, as he did not want to upset her even more. But after coming home from the hospital, when he was left alone with his grief, Arthur gave up. Their small family did not have enough money. All of Lillian's pension and Arthur's disability allowance was spent on food and basic treatment. With the last of her check, Lillian bought her grandson a wheelchair so that he could move around the house and go out, but Arthur became depressed and soon stopped going out altogether. Lillian was very worried about her grandson, who stayed in his room all day. She did not know how to help, until one day someone advised her to rent the empty room in their apartment to a student. Maybe having someone his age in the house would do him some good. That same day, she placed an ad in the paper. Only one person responded, a girl named Maria, who was a student at the university near their house. Lillian invited Maria to her home to meet Arthur as well as show her the room. Lillian liked her right away, and the very next day, Maria moved in with her things. 2 weeks passed, and Arthur and Maria only crossed paths a couple of times in the hallway, even though they lived in the same house. Once, Maria invited him to have tea together, and although he wasn't interested, he agreed in order to be polite. Maria asked him about school, but Arthur only responded that he saw no point in studying since his life was over anyway. She did not like this answer at all and decided at all costs to help the poor boy. Maria offered to help him with his studies so that he could enter the university, and she also said that being in a wheelchair is not a reason to give up, that it's important to stay positive in order to recover. Arthur wanted to go back to hiding out in his room, but deep down he knew she was right. So the next day, he took her up on her offer. Maria brought the necessary textbooks from the library, and they started their studies. And after a couple of weeks of intensive training, Maria managed to persuade Arthur to go for a walk in the park. Arthur had not left the walls of his apartment for over a year and had already forgotten what fresh air and the feeling of wind in his hair were. It was spring, and he was happy to breathe in the fresh aromas of blossoming flowers. Day after day, Arthur began to enjoy life and communication with Maria more and more. She persuaded him to go to classes at the swimming pool and insisted that he start doing exercises at home. From that day on, Arthur would study in the morning, then Maria took him to the swimming pool during the afternoons, and in the evenings they walked for a long time in the park and talked about everything in the world. On one of these walks, he tried moving his toes, and to the joy of both of them, he succeeded. Since that time, they were both confident that Arthur would recover. 2 months passed. Arthur began to realize that he couldn't imagine life without Maria. This is the first time he ever felt this way, and he realized that he had fallen in love with her. However, he could never find the right moment to confess his feelings to her, and he was worried that she did not feel the same way. Then, on one of their evening walks, he finally plucked up the courage to tell Maria how he felt. Right before he spoke, she said she wanted an ice cream and then went to go buy it. Waiting for her to return, he saw a car speeding towards her on the road. Maria just barely had enough time to jump aside and fell onto the grass. Arthur shouted, "Maria!" and stepped out of his chair to get to her. As Maria opened her eyes, she gasped, "You got up! Arthur, you can walk!" She quickly reached him and hugged him tightly. They stood together for a long time, paying no attention to those around them, and they confessed their mutual feelings to each other, rejoicing in Arthur's recovery and making plans for their future. 5 years have passed since then. Arthur and Maria got married, and she gave birth to 2 beautiful children. Thanks to Maria, Arthur successfully graduated from the university. And here is Lillian standing by the window with a cup of tea. She is crying, but why is she crying? These are tears of joy, sincere joy for her grandson. She was so worried about him when he locked himself away from the whole world and refused to communicate with other people. Now she thanks God for sending the wonderful Maria to their house and into their lives, who believed in Arthur and gave him strength and confidence. They will be able to overcome all of life's difficulties and be truly happy together. This is how true love worked a real miracle. Where the doctors had already given up, it was once again proven that if you strongly believe in something and have support from your loved ones, then together you can move mountains. Friends, have you ever seen a real miracle in your life? Share it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, then be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.